data released by the Nigeria Interbank Settlement Systems says that transactions worth 38.9 trillion naira were performed electronically in November through the NIBS instant payment platform. And on this shows that it's the highest monthly transaction record on the platform. Although we did have some disruption, remember the cash crunch issue and then the unexpected increase in demand on some of those infrastructure, and there were a lot of failed transactions and disrupted transactions. But let's talk about the cost of those transactions and the costs of fraudulent activities on those platforms with Mr. Akinwale Goodluck. He's the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of African Nenda. He's here in the studio. Good to see you, Mr. Goodluck. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so after that cash crunch and, the huge demand that led to a lot of failed or aborted transactions, would you say there's been a change? Have they learned from the lesson of that period? Talking about instant payments and all of that.
Well, I think the controversy and the issues, that came off the back of the currency swap have catalyzed instant payments. It has opened a new vista for people in Nigeria to understand, appreciate, adopt, and begin to use instant payment systems. The NIPS platform is a very, very good instant payment system. Yes, it was challenged as a result of the huge jump in demand at the time, but by and large, I think that NIPS is doing quite well. And
so you would say we are in a good place now?
Yes, I would say that we are in a good place. NIPS it's a very, very good system. It's one of about 40 instant payment systems in Africa, and it's one of the more progressive ones in terms of ticking the boxes around cost efficiency, very good redress mechanisms, even though there's still a bit of work that can be done in that area. It's instant, gives a good user experience, enjoys a lot of trust from the community. It's secure, and it's very easy to scale.
So is this just for NIPS or the industry generally?
Well, the NIPS is the premier payment system for Nigeria. NIPS is owned by the commercial banks and the central bank, but NIPS is the scheme operator, the scheme owner, etc.
So you talked about cost efficiency. Do consumers even know how much they are charged these days for those transactions?
Well, I think, the issue of cost is a two-pronged issue. First of all, you have to make instant payments cost not more than cash. So for a lot of people, that's a big differentiator. If you want instant payments to trend and you want people to adopt it and grow usage, then the cost of using instant payments must not be more than cash. Now, secondly, a lot of payment systems and NIPS also gives you a fair amount of visibility and transparency around your costs. So very often you see that you get a transaction notice telling you this is going to cost you XYZ or this costs you XYZ. So there's visibility. If you look at one of the primary considerations for very good payment systems, it must be low cost, particularly when you're trying to drive low value, high volume type payments, then cost is really critical.
What about security?
Security is good. What has happened in the world is that those who operate in the real world, the criminals, the fraudsters, have moved online. You can never have enough security, but there's a lot of work to be done around security, both in terms of, one, security has a big impact on confidence. And if people lose confidence in the payment system, then the payment system is in trouble. So with security, you then look at security before the payment, at the payment stage, and after the payment. There's a lot of education to be done. There's a big role for all stakeholders in terms of addressing security. Security must also take cognizance of the level of financial sophistication in the market, and more importantly, the level of digital and financial literacy.
When you say there's a lot of education to be made, like what do you think people do not already know, or what are some of those things or tips that I think our viewers watching should be conscious of when you talk about security on instant payments?
Well, I think, if you look at the world today, there are not too many types of fraud. One is when you sort of initiate the payment yourself as a result of what we call social engineering fraud. That's where someone has sent you a message and you have acted on that message, that fraudulent message, and have actually initiated the transfer yourself. Another aspect is where, for instance, there's been a breach of data and somebody's able to initiate or take over, for instance, your SIM, and then initiate a transaction on your behalf. What we need is a lot more education. We also need for payment systems to be a lot clearer in terms of redress. In a lot of markets, the principles around fraud stipulate that, look, once it's a fraudulent transaction, irrespective of how it was initiated, there is no liability for the user. And if you are doing that, you must also take time to ensure that the redress is affordable, is quick, and it's not challenging for our people to use.
So sometimes I've heard of situations where these kind of things happen, and it's a data-driven world that we're living in. So we expect, for instance, our financial institutions should have our data, our communication, they could even trace the calls made and things like that. So when a fraudulent activity takes place on someone's account, maybe the person initiated it, or sometimes maybe not. All this ATM on phones. A lot of people expect that the financial institution should be able to give information that can lead to the arrest of the criminal individual. But we don't hear a lot of that in this country.
I think there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. So among the mobile network operators, the banks, the central bank, there's actually a lot of work streams addressing fraud. The issue is that for instant payment systems, it's two things. The money is sent instantly, and very often, 99% of the time, is irrevocable. So the damage has been done. The user is typically not really interested in ensuring that somebody is arrested. What is important for the user is, how do I get my money back?
But if you get the criminal arrested, you could get your money back.
Yeah.
By chance.
By chance. But I think sometimes...
it just gives you that satisfaction that something has been done. The criminal is arrested. Even if you do not recover all of your money but the system is doing something, about your plight.
Yes, I think the system, NIPS and, indeed most payment systems have very robust fraud prevention and, fraud recourses. One problem typically is the amount of fraud. Also, we see that, users are often led by social engineering to make mistakes. So I keep harping on the point of capacity building, digital literacy, financial literacy, and anything that sounds or looks too good to be true, it's not. It's too...
Yeah, I always say that too. But you also have the situation where phones are stolen, ATMs are stolen, or at the point, gunpoint, people are forced. At the ATM, that's instant payment. You also have cameras there. It's supposed to be for security, but I don't know. Does it work?
I think those things work, but the beauty of instant payment systems is people want their money immediately. So systems are customized to deliver that service, and a system will deliver that service irrespective of who is accessing it, provided that that person has come with the right ID, the right passwords, knows the OTPs, etc. But what then typically happens is that systems also have a lot of built-in fraud detection and monitoring processes. So if you see a certain kind of transaction being replicated over and over within the same time frame, it can trigger a warning.
But it hasn't been. You've had people say, oh, maybe their phones were taken or something, and they used it, and they used it for recharge card a couple of times. you know, it wasn't stopped, or I don't think alarms were raised.
No, I think alarms are raised.
Okay.
Depends on, what time of the day this is raised. The response by the digital financial services provider, the interplay between the banks, the telcos, and all the other players in the ecosystem. But I think by and large, the fraud that we have seen and experiencing in Nigeria is not germane to Nigeria. It's very prevalent across Africa, across Asia, perhaps even with more levels of sophistication.
Yeah, at least we don't have identity theft back here in Nigeria. Or do we have that? I haven't heard.
We do have identity theft. Absolutely.
Wow, that's that's fearful. Well, any parting words for our viewers on this issue? Maybe some tips that they could arm themselves with to prevent being defrauded.
Well, I always say that vigilance is good. Also, take due care of your electronic devices, your ATM cards, have limits on your account, etc. So just a few common sense tips, but by and large, again, it boils down to capacity building of our people to address the issues.
And also, if prevention. It looks too good to be true, it's not true.
Don't touch it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Akinwale Goodluck, Deputy Chief Executive Officer of African Lender, for your time
and the tips. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.